What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Gandee Show. If this is your first time here, my name is Joey, and this channel exists to have real, honest conversations about recovery, about healing, purpose, and becoming the best versions of ourselves. Before I get into today's topic, I want to acknowledge what inspired this episode. Today's conversation was inspired by one of my brothers in recovery. His name is Daniel. And a question from his daily recovery journal. Specifically, one of the questions and answer prompts that really made me stop and reflect. So, thank you, Daniel, for this wonderful topic for today. I'm really excited to talk about it because, it might be a little bit controversial to some people depending on who's watching, but I think this is going to be an impactful episode. And the format of today's episode is also based on an excerpt from a sister in recovery. Her name is Jayde, and this is taken directly from her personal and daily journal. So, thank you also to Jayde because, again, I think that this topic is somewhat controversial to some people, but I think it is like just ultimately important. This might be, and I say this all the time, but this might be one of the most important things that we've talked about on my channel. So thank you, Daniel and Jayde, for today's episode. I want to be very clear about something. These are original and personal thoughts. Jayde is very proud of her recovery, and she does not care who knows about it. And she's open and honest and unashamed, and I deeply respect that. The openness that she declares is what inspired me to share this message today because freedom begins where shame ends. Let's get into it. For a long time, my identity was wrapped up in one thing. I am an addict. I am a drug addict. And while there's truth in acknowledging where we come from, I think there's importance and truth in acknowledging where we come from. There's also danger in never letting ourselves to move beyond it. It's just so relevant to exactly where I'm at right now today in my journey of recovery. I'm not saying that denial is the answer, and I'm not saying like pretending addiction never happened because that's not going to save or help anybody. But what I am saying is that like when your entire identity is built around what's wrong with you, you unconsciously will keep yourself trapped there. That is powerful. I believe that I was going to perish addicted to drugs. I wholeheartedly believe that. Um, Throughout my journey in recovery, it's been a process of humbling myself before God and relinquishing my ego and understanding that I'm so much more than a drug addict. Whoever's watching this today, I need you to know that you are so much more than a drug addict or an alcoholic. We have so much more to offer this life. Just a mere fact of our existence is so astounding. To believe that you don't have a higher purpose or a higher calling is just asinine. For years, I woke up thinking I'm an addict in recovery. I'm broken, I'm damaged, and I have to constantly fight myself, right? Even though the intention was accountability, it produced shame, and shame does not heal anybody. Shame, God did not give you shame. That is not of the Creator. God did not give us shame. Shame keeps people stuck. At some point, I made a decision that I believe begun to change everything around me because I believe that our perception literally shapes our reality. I have the keys to be content in every situation. And I believe that is your perception. And your perception of yourself is more important than anybody else's perception of you. It's so important how we talk to ourselves. I used to be so unkind to myself. because of the shame and the guilt. How we talk to ourselves is more important, the most important. It's more important than anything anybody could ever say to us, ever. When you start to have a more kind perception of yourself, things around you will begin to change. I gave myself permission to start over. I don't mean erase the past. That's not what I mean, but I stopped letting it define my future. And that is the difference right there. You know, I believe that it's important to never forget where we come from and where we came from and how far we've come. But at some point, you have to stop letting shame shape your identity. I started asking myself, who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? What kind of man do I want to become? And what kind of life do I actually want to build? And I can tell you for sure that it's not a life built around shame and guilt. Instead of always policing my bad traits, I started amplifying the good ones and acknowledging the good ones. And for me, writing really helps. I believe that the first step to change is acknowledgement. Um, I talked about that in my last episode. The first step to change is acknowledgement. So for me, writing stuff down on paper really helps me to like bring it to the forefront of my daily life. And I think it's important to write, and I think it's important to put a date on whatever you're writing. The good traits that I would begin to amplify, you know, discipline, honesty, compassion, love. I don't know that if I could consider myself subscribed to any certain religion, but I do know that I want people to experience the kindness of Christ if they have an encounter with me. Purpose, my faith in a higher calling. Something that really helped me fill that void was like service, being in service to others, looking for opportunities to help people. And that's also what I'm doing with my show. What I'm doing here is important, and it really, it just brings so much purpose to my life. Getting to sit here and talk to you guys and make these episodes. I built this YouTube studio from nothing. I record and edit all my own episodes. I taught myself how to edit. It's so cool, and I really enjoy doing it. And being able to share my experience and my strength and my hope with you guys is just, it brings purpose, and it means that I didn't go through all the things that I went through for nothing. So anybody and everybody that watches and tunes in and shares this and comments, and thank you so much, because it's just evidence that supports the beliefs I have that this is helping people. So, thank you. And I think we're at 290 subscribers. That is just, I don't even know how this is happening. It's crazy. When I first started this, I had under 100, and we're at episode 13, I think, and we're almost at 300. This is crazy. Thank you guys. When I filled my life with enough good, there was no more room left for bad things, and that is just simple math. I think the law of replacement is been vital in the success that I've had. And I think that it's really important to sit down and like analyze what's not serving you in your life, and then replace it with things that are good. The more you add good things into your life, the more the bad things start to fall away. We fight to get sober, but that's not really the fight. The fight is to live and sustain a sober life. We all know how to get sober. Stop doing drugs. Stop using mood and mind altering substances, right? But like, the key is to stay that way. And if you do not have something that you're building to, a purpose, we relapse at double the rate. And that is like a statistic, that is a fact. That is why having a purpose is something I really, really emphasize on my show, and I really believe in that. We have to heal the pain, not just our behavior. I spent years trying to treat the symptom, right? Drugs and alcohol wasn't my problem, it was my solution until it wasn't. I spent years trying to treat the symptom without healing the source. Addiction wasn't my real problem. It was the solution to the pain that I did not know how to deal with or cope with. It was the only coping mechanism that I had learned. Unhealed trauma, self-hatred, feeling unworthy or unloved or unworthy of love, feeling like no matter what I ever did, it was never going to be enough. When I started focusing on removing the pain instead of fighting the addiction, everything shifted. And it takes a lot of work. I never want to mislead anybody. It takes a lot of work. Therapy, spiritual work, self-reflection, journaling, forgiveness, learning to actually value myself, forgiving myself. Before you can forgive anybody else, you got to be able to forgive yourself. And before you can be honest with anybody else, you have to be honest with yourself. And also, when I became happier, it was easier to value myself. I no longer had a reason to go back to these old patterns because I had gained the coping skills, and I had found my worth and my value, and it's not through other people. If you place all your worth in what other people think about you, you're always going to be let down. If you feel like you're being punished in sobriety, it's not sustainable. If recovery feels like restriction for you, resentment begins to grow. And but when you build a life on love, sobriety becomes a byproduct, not a battle. That is I cannot emphasize that enough. When you build a life around love, sobriety becomes a byproduct, not a battle. It is a battle, especially in the beginning. It's a battle, dude. We're fighting for our lives. I know I was fighting for my life. And I'm of the belief that now I don't it doesn't matter what your substance of choice is, nobody's safe. I stayed sober because I valued and respected myself too much to destroy what I had built. That is like that's something I'm so proud of. I'm so proud. I can look at myself in the mirror today and I'm proud of myself. Relapsing is not an option for me. I would never trade what I have built and what I'm building and what I'm working towards for any mood or mind altering substance. I'm not running from addiction anymore. I'm running towards purpose. If you're watching this and you're thinking, I'll always be broken, or I'll always be an addict, or this is just who I am. I want you to hear me clearly. Your past explains you, but it does not define you. You're allowed to grow, you're allowed to evolve, you're allowed to outgrow survival mode. I know what it feels to be fighting every single day, dude, for your life, for a place to sleep, maybe something to eat. You don't heal by obsessing over who you were. You heal by becoming who you were meant to be. And I don't care who you are and what you've done. You have a purpose. If you're still alive, if you're an addict or an alcoholic and you're still alive, trust me, you have a purpose here. There's no if your addiction was anything like mine, I should not be here. I should not be here. I'm no one special. I'm no different, better, special than any of you. I should not be here, but I have a purpose. God has a plan for you. If this inanimate object, if this table's purpose is to hold my silly little stuff on my desk, right? If this inanimate object has a purpose, you were fearfully and wonderfully made, and you were born for such a time as this. You have a purpose. One day you're going to look back and realize that you didn't fight addiction away. You outgrew it. If this message resonated with you, please like, comment, subscribe. I hate asking that because again, I feel like if what I'm doing, if what I'm saying is good enough, you're going to do that. That's a byproduct like I said earlier, right? Liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting, that should be a byproduct of good content. So hopefully I don't got to say that, but it does help the message reach whoever is in need of it. So if you're doing that, thank you. Thank you. And if you're struggling right now, you're not weak, you're not broken. You are becoming. Thank you, Jayde. Thank you, Daniel. This is the Gandee Show. I'll see you in the next episode. I'm out. Man, that was a good one. That was good.